In 1985, a figure known as Starduster came to the G.I. Joe team in the unlikeliest of ways. Cereal. This is the same year that the G.I. Joe animated series went to a full series. Neckballs were introduced, and Larry Hama's comic book series at Marvel Comics was in high gear, while along with those neckballs, Hasbro was introducing a slew of new characters to the line. Some of these were brand new molds, and others were a mashup of figures that didn't sell as well and went to Hasbro Direct, mail order, or licensing agreements. Enter Ralston. Technically, Ralston Purina. Yep, the Dog Chow Company made a G.I. Joe cereal. Imagine being a kid at this time, a peak of G.I. Joe fandom in the pop culture zeitgeist, getting ready for school, and now you have to start your day off with a blast by fueling up with a good breakfast featuring G.I. Joe Action Stars cereal. We Are the World is playing on the AM/FM JVC radio above the fridge stacked with new Coke. Back to the Future's in theaters, and Super Mario Bros. Is releasing soon. That's an exciting morning. The cereal gave you all your 4-grain goodness to keep going when the going gets tough, and we all know Deke agrees. They always sang, got to get tough. As I mentioned earlier, this was through a company called Ralston. Ralston was a massively popular maker of things like dog food and cereal for humans. At first, with their G.I. Joe cereal, you had Gung Ho with his light bluish turquoise, Duke Shipwreck, and later turquoise Starduster came along in a subsequent wave. The coloring gives him some visual stealth against a clear sky. Even though his figure came a bit later, Starduster did show up in cereal in 1985, relegated to just a coupon image for the time being. It said, keep a lookout for new G.I. Joe figures like Starduster, G.I. Joe JETPACK Trooper, plus comics, camo t-shirts, and other G.I. Joe collector's items. The second wave replaced the camo t-shirt with the Starduster figure, and other boxes had either Flint or Quick Kick on the box. One of the cool things about the boxes is that you can unfold them to make a cardboard Cobra radio relay station. These also had mini comic book inserts in the box. Quick aside, Ralston planned to make a chocolate-flavored Transformers cereal too that would have had a mail-away offer for the Autobot Jazz, but that never saw supermarket shelves. You would have been able to transform ordinary cereal into chocolate milk. Ralston are the same people who made that iconic Batman cereal from 1989 in the Nintendo cereal system that featured both Super Mario and Link from Zelda. They did Rainbow Bright, Barbie, Ghostbusters, Freakies, Bill and Ted, and a slew of other licensed properties as cereals. In the fall of 1985, Marvel Comics published the 34th issue of Marvel Age, around the same time that A Real American Hero comic book issue 44 was released. In this comic, there are profiles for some of the new Joes set to be a part of the class of 86, such as Edward Roher, codename Hotspot, aka Sci-Fi, though that wasn't his production government name, as well as Lowlight. In the middle of the page, and San's profile picture, is a new G.I. Joe codenamed Hedgehopper, whose name is classified, but whose specialty is Jetpack Trooper, a soldier specializing in using the G.I. Joe Jump Jetpack. And by the way, for more on Jump Jetpacks, check out one of my vehicles videos for the surprisingly robust history of jetpacks. So it is speculated that this was a placeholder that ultimately became Starduster. From a timeline perspective, this would align with his transition from serial insert to Hasbro Direct's mail-away offers. Also keep in mind that the various departments weren't always great about communicating with each other, and so there were some discrepancies along the way. In the late 1980s, sometime around 1987, Ralston stopped putting these out and Starduster went to Hasbro Direct. A Ralston marketing executive named Blair Entenman said that for the cereal maker, quote, G.I. Joe didn't work because the shape or taste of the cereal didn't have any linkage to the equity. Little hand grenades or landmines might have worked, but mothers would have rebelled. The mail-away offers Starduster was included in were the maneuvers manual, where he was $4.50 and 2 flag points, the first time you could get him outside of the cereal. In 1987's Chilling Events offer, Starduster was just $4.50, good until January 31st, 1988. 1989's Top Secret mail-in had him at $4.50 again, and 2 flag points, or $5.25 with no flag points, and this offer was good until September 1st of 1989. Starduster 1990's Incredible Shrinking Joes offered Starduster with Pocket Patrol and was either $4.75 and 1 flag point, or $5.50 with no flag point, and that offer expired June 30th of 1991. So who the hell is Starduster? His government name is Edward Skylar, and he was born in Burlingame, California. At a young age, Skylar joined the circus as a trapeze artist. He eventually left the circus troupe and enlisted in the United States Army, eventually graduating from Ranger School. Skylar has had multiple MOSs over the years, like Infantry Transportable Air Recon, Helicopter Assault, and a Counterintelligence Agent. He took his trapeze skills to the Army, using his acrobatic skills and energy to swing from 150-foot ropes and do entire routines while slung below a Huey helicopter. At one point, Duke from the G.I. Joe team came across one of these spectacles and figured that Skylar would be good to work with the Jump Jetpack, the G.I. Joe's jet mobile propulsion unit that others like Stalker and Grand Slam have been primary on before. So even with his specialties listed, it's a little bit nebulous as to what his real MOSs would have been other than a counterintelligence agent. Perhaps also 11 Bravo in a scout platoon, maybe 19 Delta, a Cav scout. He does a little 13F too as a joint fire support specialist, and he most certainly went through Echo Company 4th Ranger Training Battalion's RSLC course at Fort Moore, which was stood up in '86, or the Recondo School that the 82nd Airborne Division taught. Makes sense with his airborne capabilities. Maybe the SOTAC course out of the Army Proving Ground in Yuma with the TAC-Ps and CCTs for JTAC certification. That's the Special Operations Terminal Attack Control course. So he's working with commanders as their eyes and ears and coordinating with close air support and the 11 Charlies, calling in 9-line medevacs and doing things like dismounted recon, jetpack recon, ISR, target acquisition. And with his jetpack, he could have a higher high ground and eyes on a greater battle space in the larger AO. When not on an op, Starduster was often found on the test and proving grounds, working with his jump jetpack or out testing the pack in cold weather environments like the Colorado Rockies. He loves the pack and in fact has been quoted as saying, traveling 150 miles per hour with an engine strapped to your back is the easy part. Stopping in midair, splashing Cobra targets with a laser marker and getting away before the incoming artillery hits is the real showstopper. In one mini-comic, Starduster was near Vance Air Force Base in Oklahoma at a remote testing site with Gung-Ho, Dusty, and Footloose testing his jetpack. Wild Bill wanted to learn, but they started with learning how to juggle grenades first. That's some real great range safety there. Cobra, who happened to have their own secret underground weapons research center in Oklahoma, received human intelligence about Starduster. Cobra Commander said he won't dust many stars if we have the jetpack, will he? Out on the testing range, they had the jetpack in a red van flanked by Vamps, and Ripcord saw some tangos and alerted the team. Fangs were inbound. Gung-Ho was going to jump out of the van with a jetpack to save it, but it got caught on a Fang skid and Cobra stole it. Starduster leapt off of a Vamp and hung onto the skids of the Fang to recover the jetpack as it gained altitude. He got it strapped to his back and flew off to safety. Starduster continued to test the jetpack, performing aerial loops and rolls to the delight of the team on the ground. Cobra Commander had Destro try to capture him with a net hung between a couple Fang copters. They managed to snag him in the net at the same time Destro activated an electromagnetic field. The narration says he was a moth trapped in Destro's electromagnetic spiderweb. Wild Bill then, without hesitation, jumped into the cockpit of a Dragonfly to pursue. Cobra brought Starduster to the brig in their weapons center while they went to work on reverse engineering the jetpack technology. But when Destro and Cobra Commander went to visit Starduster in his cell, he was gone, as he had just busted out a vent shaft cover for a vent 15 feet off the ground, and that's the only thing that remained. Starduster was loose in the facility, trying to find the jetpack and recover it. Destro said, "It seems Starduster is indeed the star of the show today, and he keeps things interesting. A bit too interesting," a hooded Cobra Commander added. Starduster was surrounded by Cobra, seemingly captured, but he activated the jump jetpack and rocketed into the air, using the jet blast to blow the Cobra troopers to the ground. Starduster flew up a staircase, through a floor, and right out a window, then back to G.I. Joe. In 2009, Starduster was tasked with working with an Argentinian paratrooper named Sergeant Manley and the Plastorama Commandos Heroicos, the Argen-7, to train and stand up a new unit with aerial combat capabilities. By this time, Cobra had acquired the jetpack technology and was fielding it with the Crimson Strike team, so having international QRFs would allow them to respond and quell any threats rapidly. In 2009, Fun Publications published G.I. Joe vs. Cobra issue 2 with, by the way, a great Greg Horn cover of Baroness. Crimson Baroness and the Crimson Twins had turned some elite troopers into the Crimson Strike team. This is where the foul card was fleshed out some more. Starduster went to Argentina as part of the G.I. Joe joint op with Commandos Heroicos Argen-7, just like his foul card says, to train Sergeant Manley. And it was here that he met Special Action Force helicopter pilot Blades, the Commandos Heroicos pilot Glenda, which was a repainted Scarlet, Reginald Cobb, the spy named Redmark, comms expert Frank Barbieri, codenamed Thompson, and the commander Jerome Ford, aka Sergeant Shimmick. But that wasn't all. Cobra was operating out of Patagonia, Argentina, and so this ad hoc unit set up on the facility's perimeter. They disabled comms that flew up to attack the guard towers. And later in the firefight, Sergeant Manley flew up to help Glenda, who'd been outnumbered by Cobra's aerial assets. Starduster, broken visor and all, wanted to assist, but he was tied up at a DX with some Vipers. And despite that, Starduster and the team ended the mission successfully. In the top secret mail-in insert, Starduster, with a parachute pack, was dropped into the jungles of North Africa to take out a hidden Cobra radio transmitter installation and to save a G.I. Joe spy there that was being brainwashed by the transmitter's mind-altering radio radio messages. Kind of a cool detail because the Sergeant Manley figure originally came with a parachute too. In the incredible Shrinking Joe's insert, Starduster was with Admiral Keelhaul at an offshore checkpoint when they spotted a Cobra invasion force advancing on Ace's position. Time was critical, and so it was up to, quote, G.I. Joe's ultimate frontline warrior, Starduster, to spearhead the counterattack. In the chilling events mail-in, Starduster was noted as a forward observer for the Big Freeze operation run by Sergeant Slaughter. He was positioned to call in airstrikes and artillery to drop warheads on foreheads, while Frostbite in a Snowcat, Crankcase in an Awestriker, and Thunder in a Slugger launched a counterattack. From the serial, Starduster had a specific mission: capture the crystal. This was a rare xenon crystal that Cobra had stolen and held at the top of a heavily guarded tower. The crystal would complete a device that Cobra could use to cut through rock like it was butter. And because of the sheer cliff face and the array of armaments at the tower, no one could safely approach from land or air except Starduster. He could sneak up and use his JETPACK for a rapid vertical ascent to make a rooftop assault on Cobra's stronghold and recover the xenon crystal. Starduster also made it into the massive group shot and duty roster in G.I. Joe America's Elite issue 25. Here he's marked as number 219, right in between Sidetrack and Super Trooper. And Rising Sun put out a comic book called Argen-7, and Starduster appeared in issue 2. There he was with Roadblock in Argentina driving a Hemet, transporting a satellite from America into Argentina. This took place sometime before the events of issue 153. He had a funny nod to his history by saying to Roadblock that he was Special Forces. He was not going to do some stupid kid serial. He should be in a Stallone movie, not pimping kid serial. Snake Eyes and Hawk were with Glenda in a command vehicle, while the rest of Argen-7 were in Humvees escorting the convoy. Dr. Knox and Ninja Ku were in a pursuit big rig and ordered the HISS units to deploy. Starduster drove the rig over a HISS tank, and Dr. Knox then unloaded a few rounds at Starduster and then, in desperation, started ramming the Hemet. In response, Starduster rammed Dr. Knox. Later, the Hemet exploded and Starduster had to be extracted. On the animation side, Starduster was only animated for his television commercial spot, and so he didn't make it into the Sunbow or Deke animated series. But in the TV ad, he had to help some kid with an overactive imagination named Ryan get through the morning and out the door for school. It was fun, but I'm not really sure how safe it is to just fly off with Ryan hanging off your boots and no safety harness. Oh yeah, imagination. 1990's H.R. 1677, aka the Children's Television Act, effectively killed efforts like this from continuing. Starduster himself was a Frankenstein figure, mashing together parts from a few different G.I. Joes. He got a helmet that now had a star on the front, I guess to match the serial he was included with. He had a couple different versions over the next few years too. In 2007, Edward Skylar, not Starduster this time, was sold at a G.I. Joe convention in Atlanta, Georgia, paired with Grand Slam, who was also noted on this version's file card. His 2008 figure was a Toys R Us exclusive 3-pack where he was included with Wild Bill and Captain Ace as the G.I. Joe Air Command. 2009, Starduster was released at the G.I. Joe convention in Kansas City that year. This was a 2-pack with Sergeant Manley, who also came with a JETPACK. In 2022, the SoCal Joe Show put out an unofficial custom Starduster. And then we learned, as a name-only reveal, that Starduster is part of the 2024 G.I. Joe classified lineup, revealed alongside Xandar and Nemesis Immortal. To sum up Starduster, we turn to a quote from his file card which says, "We could be pinned down by artillery rockets and flanking small arms fire, every inch of sky lit by tracer, the lead so thick in the air that even the mosquitoes would take cover, but Starduster would be out there in a flash to spot the bad guys. No questions. Straight up into the flak with his characteristic show-must-go-on attitude, grinning like a Cheshire cat as he calls in enemy positions for our own artillery to hit. The guy never fails to keep the act interesting." And with that, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.